Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of IOHR TV. Syrian-Kurdish journalist Hisham Arafat has been reporting on Syria and Iraq since 2014. Among the dreadful stories he has covered in this time are the testimonies of women who have been abused throughout the ongoing conflict, which is now in its 9th year. Today he's going to tell us how Turkish-backed militias and Islamist groups are using rape as a weapon of war against Kurdish women. Hisham Arafat, thank you for being with us today.
Yes, thank you.
So please tell us what is happening in Syria at the moment. How is rape and abuse of women being systematically used as a weapon of war in the country?
2011, the conflict in Syria started between the Sunni majority people and the regime backed by Alawite. And it's a sectarian, actually, enmity between the Muslim and Shia. It's the same in Iraq, but in Syria, Alawite is part of Shia. The regime security guards, the soldiers were, as a dictator regime, they were using this weapon to terrorize people. They started raping women, abusing women and children. There are many incidents, many reports. It happened in Idlib, Jisr al-Shughur first in 2012. It happened in Daraa in 2012 as well, and then in Homs 2013 and 14. So they were using this to terrorize the, let's say, the rebels, the Turkish-backed rebels, the Turkish-backed fighters. Later, after 2015-16, the conflict in Syria changed a little bit. Now, the Kurds emerged as part of the conflict because at the beginning, Kurds were not part of the conflict. The Turkish-backed rebels, the opposition forces, they considered the Kurds as pro-regime because the Kurds were silent at the beginning. This is how they were justifying their crimes against the regime soldiers, against the regime families, and finally, recently, against the Kurdish families as well, the Kurdish women as well. When they occupied Afrin in 2018 and occupied Tal Abyad and Tarekani in 2019, they used the same weapon that the regime used against them from the beginning. So they are using it back, but not against the regime, against the Kurds here. And there were dozens of cases, women being raped and abused in Afrin. And the last one was 2 weeks ago. A 16-year girl was kidnapped in Afrin, and after being raped and abused, she was killed, and her body was thrown in an area called Azaz in rural Aleppo. In Tal Abyad, there was a case as well.
Which are some of the Turkish-backed militias that are responsible for raping women?
There are many groups operating now in Afrin and in Serikani as well. One of them is Sultan Murad. Sultan Murad, most of them are from Aleppo countryside, but the most violent group is Ahrar al-Sharqiyya. Ahrar al-Sharqiyya, they are from Deir Zor. They are backed by Turkey. They committed atrocities in Afrin and in Serikani, and one of their crime is killing the Kurdish woman politician Havrin Khalaf last year when they invaded Serikani. In addition to dozens of cases of rape against Kurdish women in Tal Abyad and in Serikani recently.
According to the human rights organization Afrin Syria, 8 women were held captive and naked at the headquarters and prison of the Al-Hamza division, a Turkey-backed faction. Do you know the fate of these women?
Unfortunately, the fate of those women is unknown now. They don't tell the truth. They say he is freed. Even for those women, some people, for those naked women who were found in a prison in Afrin, we got some answers that no, they were set free. They are with their families. We contacted their families. Their families said no, they are not back. Something similar happened like 6 months ago in Serikani. There was a disabled boy. He was taken by Al-Hamzat group. Al-Hamzat is one of the groups operating in Serikani as well, backed by Turkey. He was taken by Hamzat group. So I myself contacted some people in the Turkish-backed militias, and one of them is their media spokesperson, let's say. His answer was the guy is free now. He was released. But unfortunately, he stayed there and his family is living in Kamishli said our boy is still kidnapped there.
It seems that there has been an increasing number of women being raped in the Rojava region and in northeastern Syria. Why is that?
The whole Rojava and northeast Syria is not only now the Kurdish cities near the border, it contains Manbij, Raqqa, and Deir ez-Zor, the Arab majority cities as well, regions, which were liberated from Daesh militarily, like let's say 2 years ago, or last year in Baghouz, in Deir ez-Zor, but not liberated ideologically. Like majority of those people were living under Daesh for 5 or 6 years, let's say. So it's not easy to change their behavior. So many of them are still sleeper cells. They are acting like IS, like Turkey-backed militia. And for them, rape, they inherited the rape from the caliphates of Islam, like more than thousands of years ago. They were doing the same behavior. When they were conquering or invading an area, the first thing they do is to rape the women they capture.
The UN treated around 38,000 women who were victims of rape in 2013 alone in Syria. How do families in Syria protect their daughters and women from abuse?
Actually, it's not easy to, for example, many families, they have daughters or like women working. So it's not easy to protect them. In the liberated areas, there are sleeper cells who may kidnap them. In the occupied areas, there are, potentiality of being kidnapped and raped is very high. So some people prevent their daughters or their sisters to go to work. So they keep staying at home. They suffer from hunger, starvation, in a very bad human situation, just to avoid, to evade their daughter to be killed or to be raped. Some other families, for their daughters to avoid being kidnapped or raped, or even there is some kind of forced marriage, like the militia go to a family, some group go to a family, they said, this is your daughter, we want them for our fighter. And it's a forced marriage. You don't have any opportunity to say yes or no. It means, okay, we did the decision and that's it. So some family, they marry their daughters in an early age. For example, I made a report on a case, a girl from Raqqa, they were living under ISIS. She was 13 and she was pregnant. She married her relative just to avoid being forcibly married to Daesh, to IS.
To what extent are the women who are raped stigmatized in the society?
That's the biggest problem of the case, actually, because people in general, the matter of rape is looked at big shame here in the family. So if a woman is raped, all her family is stigmatized. So for people here, if a woman is killed, is much better than being raped. If she's raped and she's still alive, it will be a big shame for her family. And still, people look at this as a big matter. So her family, they either leave the region to another city or try to travel to Turkey or to Iraq, to another country.
What will happen to the children of rape? Will they be accepted or aborted?
Most of them are not accepted, actually. The Yazidi community in Iraq, most of their women are living in Al-Hol, and now they're living in Kurdish area in Syria after taken out from Al-Hol camp. They have children from rape, from IS fighters. So their children are staying here. They are kept in an orphanage. It's in Derik. There is another one in Al-Hol camp as well. Taken care of by authorities because the community refused them at all. I have a case, a woman who didn't want to leave her children. She said, I want children to stay with me. So her community refused her in Iraq, in Shangal. So she stayed here. Now she's living in Hasake. She's a Yazidi woman with her children. She said, yes, I am Yazidi and I was raped or married, forcibly married, and these are my children. I will not leave them. And if my community refuses my situation, I don't care. I will stay here.
their body, their choice, but this is definitely a story of courage. You have been reporting on similar stories since 2014. Is there any woman in particular that you have met while working on the ground that you will always remember?
Last year in Bagos, the last battle against ISIS, I met a Yazidi woman. She was heavily injured in a hospital here after she was rescued from the battle. I will never forget her story. She was raped by several men, and finally, the last man, ISIS man, raped her, and after raping her, he hit her by stakes and stones, and he like broken her bones. So she was totally in heavily injured in a critical situation. That was one of the horrible stories that I never forget.
Do you know if any of these rapists have been identified and punished?
Actually, none of them, because we are following the incidents. When I say we are here, journalists in Rojava, news agencies, we are following the news every day. Since 2018 in Afrin and now in Serikanye, there were many cases. We were following up what will happen later to those rapers, but they were not punished at all. They were still free and issuing videos, and there were many cases actually, especially in Serikanye. Like 2 weeks ago, there was a rape case in Serikanye, and the one who conducted it, he published like a video which was went viral on social media. People told the Turkish authorities because the Turkish army or the Turkish security guards coming to Serikanye, to the Syrian territories, to the areas they occupied every week to check the situation of people, but they turn blind eye. Those people are still free, and they are still going on live streams on Instagram, on even on Facebook. So nobody is punishing them actually.
The UN Commission of Inquiry on Syria last March accused Turkish-backed rebels of targeting almost every aspect of Kurdish women's lives in areas under their control. What can be done to help these women and stop the ongoing violations they are subjected to?
The problem is that when you say authorities, which authorities? First of all, the Turkish-backed rebels are committing crimes against the Kurdish areas, let's say. So the regime here, first of all, has nothing to do. Secondly, the authorities, the Kurdish authorities here, of course, they are still, I call it weak, vulnerable. They are still need an international support because they are fighting not against some groups of rebels. They are backed by Turkey. Turkey is one of the regional powers in the Middle East. So it's the international community, the United Nations, they need to interfere to stop Turkey doing these attacks because Turkey is turning a blind eye to the crimes, to the violations of their militias.
Hisham Arafat, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
And thank you for being with us for another episode of IHR TV. From myself, Margherita Kargasaki. Until next time, goodbye.